Well, speaking of that,
Yeah.
now that you told about your escapades, I'll tell you a little bit about my escapades this past Monday.
Okay.
You had some business dealings, otherwise I'm sure you would have come out. But
Yeah. If I didn't, I had a meeting that was at the same time as when you were going. Otherwise, I would have.
Well, anyway, Mikey, our CMS Mikey,
Mm-hmm.
he does radio now.
Yeah.
He has a radio show he does once a week on Wednesday at WRMU 91.1. And he had asked, while I was in town, if I would come out to the station because he said that basically this college station, even though it's 2,500 watts,
Yeah.
which isn't bad
Not terrible for a college
for
station.
an FM station, and they've been around a long time.
Right.
Mikey kind of has a little inside track about what to expect from radio and kind of more modern technology and whatnot.
Sure.
So he says, the college really doesn't support the station. Believe it or not, under normal circumstances, their normal format is smooth jazz, which I guess they've been that way for literally years.
Okay.
And of course, that's not going to, engage college students who, should be or could be involved with the station.
Right.
So they've got a new station manager there. I guess the former station manager had been there for, 20 years.
Okay.
And they got a new gal who's taken over the station.
All right.
And she kind of wants to engage more of the students. She wants more students to be involved with the radio station.
Sounds like a good idea.
Now, they don't have a course over there on broadcast or communication or anything like that. From what I've learned, the station exists more or less to support the football team.
Okay.
Because they do the live football broadcasts.
Right.
But in the middle of the week when they're, just doing their normal format, nobody really gives a shit.
Right.
So their listening audience is basically just pretty much older people in the community.
Okay.
So the kids, obviously, they're not thrilled about being involved with a radio station that does smooth jazz and really doesn't appeal to, people in their own demographic.
Right. Okay.
So her idea is that she wants to make a format change.
Right.
But she kind of she doesn't want to do like really modern stuff that's, top 40 or whatever you want to call it. What do they call in radio these days that appeal to, the kids?
I guess that's pop.
Is that top 40?
I guess.
Well,
so.
Apparently a donor, an alumni,
Okay.
owns a radio station in the Alliance area
Sure.
who already does top 40.
Okay.
So they really can't switch the format to compete against this.
Against their alum.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she's thinking that what she wants to do is she wants to change the format to kind of an all hits format.
Right.
But she doesn't want to stick with specifically the pop stuff like, Madonna, Mariah Carey, whatever. She just wants all hits, be it rock and roll hits, pop hits, adult contemporary hits, things that people recognize no matter what you're into.
Sure.
So it could be anything from Whitney Houston, I Gotta Know,
Okay.
to Madonna, Like a Virgin, to
Right.
AC/DC, Back in Black.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
It's a good mix.
Anything that's basically what it boils down to is she wants an MTV
Right.
radio station.
Jack format.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So Mikey asked me and you if we would come down to the station because apparently the station does not receive a lot of funding from the college.
Right.
They receive enough funding to keep it afloat and running.
Okay.
But to do anything that would expand it or, upgrade it or promote it or, do anything more than just keep it operating,
Right.
they don't get that kind of funding.
Jeez, that's nice.
And it's just as long as it's good enough to broadcast the football games on the weekend,
Right.
that's all they care about.
Okay.
So Mikey, being involved with us over the last 8-10 years, he's got a lot of high ideals as to how he thinks things could run or should run, or
Sure.
what they could do to, make improvements.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm on board with that. But of course, they got to do it in the most cost-effective way.
Okay.
So he says, come on down to the station, take a look, see what we got going on down here, and let me know what you think.
Right.
So I went down there to the station, and they got, they've got a fairly sizable space. And they've got, 5 studios.
5 studios.
Yeah, they've got the on-air studio, the main broadcast studio.
Okay.
Then they've got a newsroom studio.
Okay.
And then they've got 3 production studios.
Wow. That isn't bad.
It isn't bad at all. So the main broadcast studio, that's where they've got the nice mixing board and the Electro Voice mics, kind of like what I got here in my studio.
Okay.
And the soft, the computer, the kind of like what we run with the SAMs.
Okay.
They run, I think it's called Simian or something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Similar to SAMs.
Yeah. Symbian.
That's it.
Yeah.
Symbian. It's a software program with the computer, and it runs all the programs and the music and all that stuff.
Sure.
They got that, and it's a basic broadcast studio.
Okay.
Well, then all the production studios have mixing boards and mics and stuff. But here's the thing. They've got all this outdated hardware equipment like reel-to-reel tapes, phonographs, DAT tapes, mini discs, all this stuff that basically went out of style at the turn of the 2000s.
Right. By 2000, no one was using any of that shit.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is they don't have any tapes. They don't have any DAT tape. And they don't have any mini discs. And they don't have any, reel-to-reel tape.
Right.
They don't even have the
equipment to play stuff that they can't get.
They don't have stuff for it anymore because you can't get it anymore, I don't think.
No, not easily anyway. Not cost effective.
No. And even if they did, what would they do with it anyway?
Yeah. What are you going to do with a reel-to-reel piece of fucking tape?
Yeah. So I was talking to the gal who's the station manager there, and I said, why do you have all this stuff in these studios? Because each studio was almost outfitted the same. Each one of them had a DAT tape player and a mini disc player and a reel-to-reel. And so why do you even have this in here?
And
why just get it out of there? Just get it out of the room.
Right.
Well, she's like, well, that's a thing. I went on eBay to see if there was any kind of a market for this kind of stuff. Maybe I could sell some of it off and use some of the proceeds for the other stuff, and there's just no market for it, and nobody wants it.
Put it in the trash.
Well, yeah, I know. And it's just like, well, there's no sense in having it in the racks anymore.
Yeah, it's useless.
I mean, you might save one or two and put it in one of the studios, so in case somebody came along with a tape, a cassette tape or a DAT tape or a mini disc, which is highly unlikely.
I mean, come on.
At least you'd have one machine left. Just one, Oh, yeah, they had cart machines, too.
Cart machines?
Cart machines.
Well, do they use them?
No. But they, and in fact, in one of the studios, the one that Mikey was doing some of his work, there was a demagnifier.
Okay.
You seen one of those, it's like
the big brick thing?
Yeah, it's like a brick thing, and you take the carts and you turn it on and it scrambles the exactly. And it erases the cart.
Right, I remember those.
Demagnetizer.
Right.
Had one of those sitting in the window.
Sure.
And I was just like, you even know what that is? What? I go, that thing there. He's looking at it. I go, what? No, it's just been sitting there. I said, that's a demagnetizer. Well, what's that for? I said, that's to wipe the carts clean.
Yeah, that's how we used to wipe out. That's how we used to clean carts to reuse them.
He goes, what's a cart? I said, it's that cartridge looking thing there. And he goes, you mean that 8-track tape player?
That's what it looks like. Yeah.
I said, yeah, it's pretty similar. Oh, that's what that's for.
Yep.
Yeah. So they had all this stuff in the studios.
Okay.
I said, you just need to just get rid of that.
Yeah, really.
Just get it out of there. Just at least open up the space.
Mm-hmm.
Because nothing here is usable. Nothing. So we were talking about that, and then they were talking about how are they going to change the format, what should they change it for, and so I guess, I was trying to sit there and help them. It's like, well, who are you trying to appeal to? Are you appealing to the outlying area within your station reach?
Right.
Or are you trying to appeal to the kids on campus? Well, we're trying to get more kids involved with the radio station, kind of make it a happening place to be.
Okay.
But, we can't do the top 40 thing because of the alum station that's being run in the area. I said, well, are the kids going to be relatable to, the hits? Are they going to relate to that? I said, this is a kind of a hard nut to crack.
Yeah,
because you're trying to appeal to the, to the businesses and maybe the people who might actually tune in the region, but
right.
You also want the kids to be involved. And that's two demographics right there, two separate demographics.
Two very different dems.
So, anyway, long story short, I think they've decided they're just basically going to try to do not specifically a Jack FM type station, but kind of that idea.
Thought you were going to say that you talked them into just staying with smooth jazz.
No. So what they've done is, I guess there's a service out there. I'm not really sure what the service is called.
Okay.
But you can basically buy a hard drive,
okay.
and it's loaded with like 5,000 various songs.
Okay.
So it's just a whole bunch of music. It's like a bunch of like 5 or 8 songs from individual artists.
Okay.
And that's what they did. They went out and bought this hard drive that's preloaded.
All right.
With all this, 5 Whitney Houston songs, 8 Madonna songs, 5 Kool and the Gang songs.
Right.
It's just a whole bunch of hit songs.
Jeez.
And that's,
I guess the idea of spending $10 a month for Spotify and loading up playlists on Spotify, mixing it with commercials on your local.
Right.
I guess that's a crazy thought. And then you'd have everything from everybody.
Well, see, here's the thing.
Okay.
And this is a point that I know that you're gonna maybe argue with or not argue with, but
okay.
Have the same viewpoint as me.
Yeah.
They're sticking with this software program that what do we call it? Symbian. And they have to. The music cannot be MP3. It needs to be WAVE.
Why?
Because that's all it plays. It doesn't recognize MP3.
But if they're getting rid of everything else, why wouldn't they just get rid of that software?
I argued with that too. I said, well, as a donation to the college, I would be willing to donate SAMs to you because they have a educational broadcast program at SAMs.
Okay.
That they'll give you a discounted, thing on Sam's program. Well, for whatever reason, which I'm not really sure why, we're just going to stick with the WAVE, Okay. So basically, Mikey had to take all of the music that they've gotten so far, and convert it to WAVE.
Holy shit! Now and then it won't all fit on the fucking hard drive.
Well, that's the thing. They got like a 2 terabyte hard drive.
Yeah.
So they've had to convert basically all the songs that they had to WAV files.
Yeah, which takes a 4 meg song and makes it 50 meg.
I know.
So you blow it up times 10.
I know. Trust me, I know. And I'm just like, why don't they just do MP3? Well, because Symbian doesn't recognize MP3.
Yeah, well, that's because the shit's outdated.
It's just like, I said, you guys are doing all WAV files? Are you kidding me?
What year is this?
Well, again, this is what they were doing.
Okay.
And then, this was him and his girlfriend, which, by the way, I met his little girlfriend.
Oh, yeah?
Nice little college gal.
You banging that out?
Him?
Yeah.
That's a whole other story. I'll have to tell you that on air. Off air, I mean.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right, so that's a yes, but. Go ahead.
So anyway, she apparently is a huge fan of ours.
His girlfriend?
His girlfriend.
Really?
And her father listens to us.
Oh, boy.
So
that's not good.
So me coming to the station was like having Opie or Anthony or Howard Stern coming to the station.
Boy, nice.
Like the celebrity guy is coming to the station.
Get a free lunch or something?
Because my dad listens to you and my girlfriend listens to you.
How old is the dad?
Well, well, she's like 20, 18. So, I'm sure he's in his 40s.
Same age as Mike Sr.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And she's going on and on how funny we are and how her dad laughs his ass off when he listens to us.
What if his dad will laugh if I'm telling jokes about his little girl getting fucked? Think he will?
I don't know. But it's just like, oh, come on.
Dad, listen to this. They're talking about Mikey plowing my pussy.
Right. So I got to hang out with Mikey and his girlfriend for about 4 or 5 hours.
Okay. Well, that's fun.
While we sat there, going through music and talking about format changes. And
right.
So, I don't know if you've seen the Electro Voice mics, right?
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Well, they're in what they call a shock mount.
Okay, yeah, it has the little
rubber
thing,
the little rubber band things.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, they have Electro Voice mics in each studio.
Yeah.
Every one of those little shock mount rubber band things were broken. Every one of them was broken.
So they're all just laying.
Yeah, they're just basically laying there off to the side and everything. So I went on the website that I buy my equipment from. And I said, look, you guys need to buy these replacements.
Yeah.
These things are $20 for a set.
Right.
I said you need about six sets of these things, to fix all your mic, your shock mounts and all this.
Sure.
So it's like, this is pathetic.
You wanted to pull up pictures of your own studio and say, look, this is what I got in my house, you fucking idiots.
Well, again, it all boiled down to, we don't have a budget and they don't have the money and they don't have this and that. It's like, I guess I'm going to have to.
But hold on. I know I'm interrupting. They don't have the budget, but you offered to upgrade the shit.
Yeah, that's
true.
Budget. True.
And they turned it down to stay with the old shit.
Yeah, because they're used to doing certain things. And the other thing is that they got this editing equipment.
Yeah.
It's I think it's Adobe Premiere or something.
Audition?
Yeah, Audition. That's it.
Yeah, I use that.
Yeah, they're using that.
Okay, that's actually not bad.
It's not that it's bad. It's just that it's just in order to have that.
Yeah.
I don't know what version you have.
I have 2015 or 14 or
Oh, really? Well, anyway, they don't sell it apparently.
Not individually, no.
No, you have to lease it.
Lease it?
Yeah, whatever they're using, okay? I'm not really sure the whole thing. Mm-hmm. But you can't own the license. You basically have to purchase a yearly lease.
What kind of bullshit is that?
This is what they're using over there that you don't actually, once you, like with WaveLab.
Right. I should have definitely gone with you.
If if you purchase WaveLab, you own it.
Yeah. Well, no. Adobe now does licensing. They do all that licensing bullshit.
Yeah.
But for Audition, all they would have to do is sign up for a by the month. That's what I do because I can't afford the Adobe suite. It's fucking $2,300.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
But you can rent it or lease it or whatever for $20 a month.
Yeah, well, even $20 a month is per license.
Yeah,
and they need like 4 licenses or something, and it's just like that's $80 a month, and they don't have like that in the budget. And
well, but they're actually wrong on that too. But anyway,
well,
because you can go up to 3 computers with 1 license.
Yeah,
but whatever. I get your point.
So I was looking at, again, WaveLab too has the educational program,
right?
To where for education, what do you call that? Institutions.
Okay.
They will give you an institution price,
right?
If you're an accredited school or something like that, and you could get it for a cut rate deal. It's like, well, why don't you guys use WaveLab? And Mikey had WaveLab on his laptop, and he pulled it up to show his, station manager how it worked and what it does and this and that. And I just think we're gonna stick with Adobe.
Yeah, why? Why would we go to something cheaper that's $80? Isn't WaveLab like $80?
Well, it's $500 if you buy it.
Is it?
Yeah, it's really expensive.
Is that much money?
Yeah, it's $500.
Audacity. It's free.
Yeah, true. But they already have the Adobe, but they have to pay the the yearly lease on it or whatever they call that.
Maybe I'm just stupid here. Maybe my skill in budgeting is not very good. But if you can upgrade your software for nothing, and you can eliminate a lease for $1,000 a month or a year and use something else that costs you nothing, isn't that saving money?
I would think, but again, I don't know what the true mindset is, but it just telling what they got going on there, and plus their computers, they're all like Windows XP.
Well, at least they're modern.
So that they've got he was like transferring songs from like a hard drive from the computer to a hard drive,
right?
And things like that. And I mean, it literally was taking forever. It's like, wow. I said, what are you using there? It's like, oh, this is Windows XP, and it just, I mean, it was like one file of like 10 songs, and it was like 2 hours.
Oh my God!
It's just ridiculous.
1 gig of RAM in it.
Yeah.
Right.
She was a slow one.
Piece of shit.
I said, Mikey, why don't you he had his laptop there. He had like a new Dell laptop.
Yeah. I
said, why don't you just transfer it to your laptop?
Right.
And then just put it on the hard drive.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. I wish I wish I had thought of that.
Wow.
Hooked it up to his laptop. Zip.
Yeah, done in like a minute.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, because he's probably running this stupid shit. It's probably XP on a fucking an old ass AMD chip that back before everything was like 3.2 gigahertz a second. He's
exactly.
Probably at like 300 megasecond or something. Some crazy slow shit.
So that's what they're dealing with over there.
Nice.
So, I went around, I made kind of an assessment. I looked at their equipment. It's like, get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that.
Right.
Just take that out. It's like, you'll never use any of this. I said, everything you should have is right on your desktop.
That's right.
I said, you need a mixing board, a mic, and software. That's
right.
it. You don't need these DAT machines and reel-to-reels and cassette players and phonographs and all this other stuff.
Sure.
It's like, just get rid of it.
Right.
And so we went over that, and then Mikey's like, hey, 3 o'clock's rolling up here. You want to do the news? I'm just like, what do you mean? He goes, well, the girl, there was a girl over excuse me, there was a girl over in the broadcast studio doing her shift.
Okay.
And they do the news at the top of the hour.
All right.
So I said, okay, what are we going to do? Well, let's go over to the broadcast studio. So this girl, college girl, she had picked out 3 or 4 news stories that had to do with Ohio.
Okay.
And she basically wrote some copy.
Oh, and you had to read the copy?
Yeah, I had to read the copy. Oh, boy. So they did news and they did sports.
All right.
And they had the whole bumper, the whole jingle. Now it's top of the hour here at WRMU 91.1. It's time for the news. yeah, basically that's it. And they go, yeah, good afternoon. This is, and there's like a blank, and you got to put your name in there.
Right.
So the girl's just like, you ought to say you're like a guest host DJ here, and you should say where you're from, and this.
Wow.
Yeah, I said, yeah, like anybody will know that.
Yeah, of course.
So I got on there, and Mikey was going to do the sports, right? Okay. So I tried to engage Mikey in doing like a little banter with the news.
Yeah, nice.
So it's like, good afternoon. This is guest host Neeley from the Classic Metal Show doing the news right here on WRMU, along with this is Michael from the B-Sides.
Oh boy,
that kind of stuff.
Cheese Dick News starring Neeley and Mikey.
So we're just today in Columbus, Ohio. The Ohio House of Representatives met for the first time since winning the election. Blah blah blah.
Please tell me that you used the really cheesy announcer voice too.
I did.
Oh, that's awesome.
I did. So I read the news story.
All right.
And I read a news story about some guy who ran his car off the road and into a swamp.
Okay.
And he basically called 911 on his cell phone.
Okay.
And before 911 could get over there and rescue him out of there, he died. I know, it's pretty sad. So I'm trying to engage Mike.
Out of his car?
Yeah. I guess he drowned in his car. He couldn't get out of his car, and he ran it into a swamp, and I guess it basically drowned in his car before the 911 responders could get there.
Guess he didn't have a foot to kick the window out?
I don't know what the deal was.
Jesus,
so,
okay.
of course, I'm trying to engage Mikey in on commenting on this news story.
Right.
It's like, holy smokes, Mikey, somebody should revoke this guy's license.
Really?
Stuff like that.
Mikey said, yeah, God did.
And then there was a news story about some police dog that got lost or ran away. Some trained narcotics dog or something. And, the local law enforcement were on horseback. They engaged the horseback sheriff's department to go through the woods looking for this dog.
All right.
It's just like, look at this dog gets lost, and they engage other animals to go find him, stuff like that. We're just goofing on. It's like tragic news, but fun but entertaining to listen to, or something like that.
Hey, if they want to engage the students, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. So that he was reading the news about Bill Parcells or Rex Ryan who got the boot.
Right.
It's like about time. It's like get that bum out of New York, stuff like that, But so Mikey's parents were listening.
Okay.
Well, unbeknownst to me, I wasn't running the board. I was just on one of the guest mics.
Okay.
Well, he had texted them and told them we were going to do the news.
Okay.
So they were listening at home because I went to his house later, and they said that we were just like totally distorted out because she was running the board so hot. We were just like, they said they couldn't understand one thing we said.
It's awesome.
So that's the other thing. This whole studio, they got all this old ass equipment, but they have no limiter compressors at all.
Nice. Do they have something that tells them how hot they are?
Like the
gauge?
Well, the needle, they have the gauges on the board.
Yeah.
But what you need and what I have here in the studio is here in my studio, even though I got the the meters, I still have a limiter to compressor because if I run something hot, it'll never get over a certain decibel.
Yeah, but from the sound of it, it sounds like she just was like, all right, here we go. Hey, what's going on? Hey, here we are.
That's exactly right.
Didn't adjust at all.
None at all. So she basically ran the board hot the entire time. Nice. We were doing the news, so nobody understood anything we were saying.
All your great comedy went to shit.
College,
way to go, guest host.
College radio at its best.
That's it.
So we went, Mikey was just like, yeah, Mom and Dad are expecting you to come over and have dinner with us and stuff. You want to come over, to the hut?
To the hut?
To the hut.
You live at a Pizza Hut?
So I said, yeah, sure, we'll go over there. So I followed Mikey home, and, Mike Sr. and his mom, they were all, happy to see me and everything. And,
sure.
And they had like the dishes stacked on the table like they were going to make dinner.
Okay.
And Mom was like, you know what? I don't feel like making anything. Let's just go out.
All right.
So they took me out to some restaurant there local.
Okay.
And we went and had dinner and everything.
Nice.
So, but anyway, we were talking about that. It's, hey, did you hear a news report? And he said, yeah, but you guys were so distorted. We couldn't hear a thing.
That's great.
So that was totally lost.
Did you pass Mikey's mom my message?
Yeah. I said, I'll have to engage Mr. Chris to come down here, and visit, I said he was too busy to come down here today.
Yeah, but I'd visit that.
She's like, are you staying the night? Do you want to stay here tonight? It's like, no, I'm heading home, heading back to the sister's place.
Now, do they have Florida or whatever her name is still living with them?
No, that's just them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if the family came with them from Baltimore or not. What was that lady's name? It wasn't Florida.
Florida. What are you thinking? Good Times?
Yeah. Well, what was her name? Her name was something from it. Wheezy.
Wheezy.
Remember, he had an Aunt Wheezy.
Aunt Wheezy.
Yeah.
No.
Florida. Whoops.
Florida. James. No.
James.
No, it's just Mom and Dad and Mikey.
That's cool.
So Mikey got a new Alesis mixing board for Christmas.
Oh, wow. The little, like the 4-channel one?
Yeah, they're like the one that I use when we do our little remotes.
Okay, nice.
He's got that. They're not real expensive. They're about $99.
Right.
But he got a new Alesis mixing board and a new mic and all that kind of stuff.
Jeez, think about that. In one Christmas day, he's already got more gear than the fucking station.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
Jesus.
So he's over there doing his whole recording projects and his whole little podcast and,
What's his podcast?
Well, he does his 1 hour show.
Oh, okay. Does he put it up online?
No, he doesn't. I asked him. I said, "Why? You should just put it up on the Spreaker." Well, I don't have the licensing right to play the music and this and that. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't know how Red and Jerry does that.
Yeah, I don't know how any of them do it.
Or even Jennifer over at 80s Hairband Whirl.
Because her awesomeness outweighs stupid things like licensing fees.
It's like, how do those people put their music up online like that?
Because Spreaker doesn't stop them.
Apparently not.
I know Red and Jerry have actually gotten to the point, though, now that they cut out the music and they do put up because of iTunes, they put up a podcast with just the talking segments.
Right.
So I don't know how that's doing for them or not, but I know they are doing that.
Sure. So anyway, that was my Monday.
Fun.
Just being the radio consultant guy.
Yeah. Look at you go.
So look what you missed.
I did miss. Sounds like I missed a fun time. Actually.
It was kind of silly. It was kind of fun.
Yeah. But I wish I would have had time. Wish my goddamn life wasn't what it is.
Right. So we just kind of hung out and just chit chatted and talked about, what they could do for their station and how they could change their format and,
right.
What would appeal to the listeners and that kind of stuff. So it was just fun.
Well, that's cool, dude. I mean, it's cool to, to get out there and do something a little different.
Right. But I offered to, to maybe donate some software or something to them to at least get them going. And it's like, we're just going to.
We're going to stay with our shit.
Well, we're just going to, try to, figure out what we can do from here and, so on and so forth. I just like, there's just better stuff out there and a lot less expensive.
Sure. It's because they bought the shit in fucking 1997.
Right.